Hey, what's going on, Banks here? Just wanted to do a quick video kind of on the inventory boxes that I've been talking about. Um, we'll talk about today's boxes. We'll create the ones for, I guess, RTH tomorrow on the 23rd, and then kind of get into, just, we'll flip through some random days and kind of see them, play out. So going back to today, obviously we had the FOMC news that kind of pushed those highs, but this was going into the market today. Um, and I hope that you guys can see this, but so this box right here was kind of what I was talking about pre-market. If you lost this box, you would come into this area that was kind of tested over globex. So this was really kind of the play for me, was holding this 850, 840 area and kind of this push higher to the highs. And then obviously, I mean, you can see that played out today, but we'll kind of get into how we actually draw those right now. So this is what I have going into tomorrow. Now, Globex will kind of change that. We'll trade the RTH ones as well, so we'll chart those as we get into it. But let's just go to a fresh chart, and we can kind of walk through. I'll just flip through a random day. So here, let's do this one. So we can start off here and kind of see what's been tested. So these are basically just daily profiles as we get into it. So what I'll do is I'll get in and look and see where the HVNs, LVNs are. So like this profile right here is pretty balanced. I mean, you could say that right here is one. I'm just gonna do a full retracement. So and the idea behind this is basically to find the edges or where there could be stuck inventory, stuck buyer sellers on these profiles. So the theory of this would be like, obviously you can see that we traveled down. So the first test back into this profile from the low, you would get, a reaction out of it. People that were buying right here that necessarily, maybe they didn't get out on this move. And then obviously you have this, go against them. So kind of getting back into this area here is that first test. So, basically what I'll do is on the daily levels, I'll come in and chart out the HVNs. And then let's just go through and let's just say that we're trading this day, for instance. So, this was kind of tested in this area. Obviously you can see that we held, and didn't get that push through. I'll keep it on there just for reference. This is one that you could say you could probably peel it off, I guess, because it's tested, but it's not tested both ways, and that's the way that I usually do it, is once these are tested both ways. So if we would have came down here, ping, went down here, and came to it, this would have been deleted. So those are the ones I usually will keep on, is like one like this, I'll usually keep on until it's tested from the bottom side. Then getting into this profile here for this day. So just looking at this HVN, we'll chart this up real quick. Then we can kind of talk about trade ideas on this move. Actually, let me delete this one. And I would almost consider this one as well. Just do this high. It's going to be a tighter one, but it'll give some more reference as well. So I'll try basically this area here is just that void. So like, you consider like in the voids and clusters or delta points or something like that. Those would be areas that we typically just flow through. Let me finish this up and we can kind of talk about it. So this would be the idea. So let's just say coming into this day here, the idea would be, and I'll even do the globex piece so that you guys can see as well. So this would be globex. So if we're coming into this market right here, and this is our trading, this would be our RTH session. So the idea with this, and this is on a 5-minute chart just for reference. I would chart this probably multiple ways, or I mean, I'm sorry, multiple boxes. So, getting into the price retracement, I'd probably do that, that, and one last one on this low. Now, this isn't the cleanest globex, and I didn't mean to do it this way, but it kind of works out. Is during the RTH, and we'll label these a little bit differently. We'll do different colors on these. The idea would be to basically trade zone to zone. So you know, just to make this a little bit easier, instead of you're not getting into the big nuance of it, let's just do one zone per se. So we'll do a price retracement basically from here. Let's just say to these lows. And then we'll do one on these highs. So these would be like your globex inventory zones. So we'll do these and we'll make them, let's just say a teal color. I get it. There's probably an easier way to do this. I am not the best with Sierra, but gets the job done. So this would be going into globex, or I'm sorry, getting out of globex and RTH. So just this trading day, basically. So this is only globex for the trading day. So obviously this was kind of a balanced day. I don't even know what date that was. I guess the 7th of December. I don't know what day of the week that was or whatever it is. But in reference, so basically the trade idea on these that I use is, like for instance, getting above like this box here. Your target would then be this box here. And it's basically just going edge to edge on inventories. So, and if you're thinking about this, so these buyers here during globex that bought all in this range, if you're a buyer on these highs and you're a bigger market player, and let's just say that you're still in this trade or still positional in this trade, the first test in this area is typically going to get a reaction. Now, globex doesn't always do that way because it's pretty short term, but on the dailies, that's the idea of it. But you can see this move. So off the open, we push, come right up to the top, fail, and basically go end to end on edge. So we go through this, we get below this edge here, and basically go test this edge. So the ideas behind these are basically zone to zone. So if this was one big zone, and let's just do that for reference, because you can do that as well. Let's just do it as one big zone. So your extensions, and we'll do this like yellow, just so you can tell the difference. So the extensions on this, I mean, you can do just one globex profile as well. It just really depends on what the profile looks like when you're marking it up. But basically, the idea of these would be trading edge to edge. This is really good in a balance day. For trend days, I use these zones more as take profits, like going into zones. But you can see, I mean, the idea here was basically a fail. So if we could not get above this zone and go target this daily, then the idea here was to take this down to this low. Holding this area, you get a base, reject the daily. You don't go beneath the globex tested area. So in theory, the hold and push would push you to this zone here. So basically trading zone to zone is the way that I've kind of done this and designed it. And we can look at a couple more days, but let's just look at the dailies. So that's kind of the globex nuance that I've kind of added. So let's just say, this would have been necessarily not the perfect day, to be trading that, and that's why I've added in the globex zones, because I think those give reference to the intraday traders that I think that I wasn't doing necessarily before, by just using the dailies. But I think the dailies paint a pretty nice, clean picture. Um, and actually, I'd be curious to see, looking back left, if this was a zone down here, because it typically is. Um, so let's just go into this profile. So let's turn off the globe, or the globex sessions, and we'll just keep looking at the dailies. So, for instance, going through this day, this one I would almost say, I mean, you're tested it both ways. I would just get rid of it, and then you're basically putting on a new, fresh inventory zone. So let's just say here to here. You could in theory probably do one here to here. I like doing the bigger moves. Now, if there's like a definitive, a I guess definitive LVN like here, then I would just go from here to here, and then basically if there was another HV in here, just here to here. So it really just depends on how the profile's set up, to be honest with you. So it's a little bit subjective. Um, but this would be the daily for then the 7th that traded. So then let's go over to the 8th and see how that played out. So obviously this area held. You had a peak below here, but this area held. So your target on this, if you're just trading the daily zones, would be daily to daily. And obviously you see this play out. Now, if you would have kept this one on that we had, this would have been the bang off of that, and then basically your test of this area here, which would have been the top of that profile. So that's the idea of it, and then you can see how this plays out. So these are just zones as targets above. So this zone here, it gets tested here. Well, we couldn't get into this zone. We couldn't get above it and kind of push to this zone. So that becomes a rejection, which it makes sense. I mean, first test of this area here. If you were a buyer and this went against you, first test of this area, and it's also getting like back into balance of this day. So really, once you get into these days, you kind of get those push throughs, and you can see. Okay, so this is news, obviously driven, but this right here. So we get above this and trade. Next candle is here, so that's 160 points, but that's zone to zone. So let's go above us and see what hasn't traded. So because that traded here. So let's go left. Let's just see that what would have played. So you're looking at above 12.4. And this is the hard part about going back, is because you're basically looking to see where your untested box that already would have been on my chart. Let's see. So you probably would have been up in here. So let's do this one here. So let's go. You're probably going to be on this high, if I had to guess. So this has not been tested. This would have been tested. Price retracement. Let's go here. So I said, I mean, it's a little bit subjective because obviously you see the volume here. So you're looking for like more of a distribution. So distribution edges, I guess, is a better way of putting it. So obviously you see us taper off here at these highs, and then basically I would keep those on until they're tested. And that's the way that I would trade these. And those are your bigger time frame moves. Is how you get into these areas. So I think we were in December when we traded. So this right here, these would have already played. So this would have been the chart here. So I would have had here. So I mean, it's hard to go back, especially on a 5 minute. I have to change the time frame. but basically, it's just finding these zones that you would consider as being inventory zones. Now, if we go to like the weekly stuff, this is what kind of gets interesting. So this is my normal chart that I have on the weekly, and so this zone right here was not tested. So like if you okay, let's just go back. So these would be your primary untested zones, which would be around 14 and 13.7. This zone has not been tested. You can see after multiple weeks, we came back and tested this zone. We weren't able to get back through. So you'd be targeting something lower that I would have had marked from the left side. Um, so on this move up, we left this area here untested. Um, and obviously, I don't have anything marked down here because this has all been tested like on the back of these moves over here going into this year. But if you're just looking, so let's just say from this move. So this would have been the move to get over this 480 mark, at least from here. Let's just say 400 to 480, if I had to guess, around that area. 450. Let's just say 450. So once you're kind of getting into these zones and you're kind of pushing up, um, these would be targets. So obviously we come up, we test this, we're able to get above it. We go test the high, we reject, and we fail below. Um, we come back and test this area, and fail. So basically it's looking left to see what would be the areas of interest. So like on this week here, we'll just draw this so you can kind of see how it plays. so right here. So like right here on this move down, you break below these so that you break below this weekly. Now this has already been tested, but this weekly here kind of has the push. So fail below this low would bring you into this weekly's untested from this push up. So obviously you get through it, you back test it, you pop a little bit above it and fail, and then that's the next reaction is down to this area. So it's basically like these just give me, I guess, in reference zones that to pay attention to. So like kind of on the like gain loss stuff, a lot of these areas are in the same area. Instead of just a single price line off of a body or a wick or something along those lines, this just gives me a zone to pay attention to. It's not necessarily like an exact target, but you can see today. I mean, my idea for the week was basically if we could get above this to target these. The real untested is when you get up here into these 13.4s. But, obviously if we reject, I mean, and that's why I kept these because these are pretty strong rejection points. But, this high that was yesterday was in the top of this zone. Above this, I really had nothing until 100, 200 points higher up in this 13.2s. So, I mean, that's the idea of these trades. Now, if we fall below this 740 mark, because I know that we kind of pushed down and pushed up into here, and we're testing it now. If we fall below the 740 mark and get some traction down, this would be my target on this move. So basically, it's edge to edge. And we can go into today and kind of mark up today. Let's clear this off first. So erase all text, non-text drawings. So we'll go to today and kind of draw it up. This one's going to be a little bit weird because of the news that made this goofy profile. But so like today, if I was just looking at the dailies going into tomorrow, this is the way that I would draw it. I'd probably go from here, to be honest. You could probably do a small one. I mean, you're talking 40 points combined in between them. But that would be an area that I would probably look at as well. But let's just mark this one up real quick, and then we can kind of dig into that one. So tools. So this would be the idea of this day. So if we can get some traction above this 840 area, this would be the target on this move. Now there's multiple stuff that went into today if you're just looking at delta and moves and stuff like that. So I mean, that's the hard part about this one because we had so much movement in here. But that would be the idea. So if you get above 840, then you're targeting the 960s. Now, if you want to get into the nuance of it, I guess you could say that this is probably a small distribution. So in theory, you could probably do this one as well. Now these are going to be smaller zones, but you at least get the picture of how to draw it and how to get into the details of it. So, but then looking left on targets below, and on my normal chart, I have targets above on the weekly and daily. So let's just look, lower though. So this daily didn't test this. We tested the high, but we didn't test the low. So my price tool on this, let's go from here. And I'm just going to draw the low because the top has already been tested. So I'll, like even if there's this, like this has been tested here on this, we tend to print new areas. So if I would have held that, so let's just draw this again. This would have been basically the stopping point. So if I would have kept that on there, which I kind of remember just off of reference, but this would have been the area of interest, and it's also this daily. So if you get into this daily, so going into today, this was not tested. So we had one here at the highs and one here at the lows. Now I wouldn't have this on now, but at least for your reference, on kind of a stopping point, that's your area. So the previous day on the 21st RTH, so yesterday, that would have been your low on the low box. Your high, if I was trading today's, would have been edge to edge. So obviously you can see globex printed here, came down and got above it and pushed. Now once we got below this, you're targeting this. That's the idea and theory behind it. But like today, like after this is printed, I would take this off. That's tested. This is more for reference of if we break below the 680s of what we're targeting next. So 680s targeting 580 would be the trade. Now, this has already been tested both ways. This would be my next area. So obviously, a couple days ago, we remember trading in this area. So my chart would look like this. We have not tested either of these. So you have an area at 460, an area at 340. This area tested the highs. We can kind of chart this up. It wasn't a clean touch because this would probably go into here. It wasn't necessarily a clean touch, but it would have held these lows on this move. So this would have been a 2 profile, at least the way that I would draw it. So let's just say from there to there, and then I would have had 2 more profiles here, but those would already be deleted and tested if we're looking at this market. So these are kind of my areas below us, and basically I just keep these on until they're tested. So it's not tested in this daily, these stay on. These aren't tested in this daily, these stay on. Both of these were tested in this daily, so these come off. Same thing. This was tested in this, so but I kept the low on. And then same goes for this one. So obviously now we're below it on this move. So if we just move down here and start hitting these areas down here, these areas would stay on as targets for the future. But you can see basically these would be my areas of interest going into tomorrow, and anything in between is just the market's doing its thing. I necessarily wouldn't initiate trades outside of these areas. Now, if you're trading like ORs, I would trade ORs to these areas. These would be targets on the way out. So, I mean, if you guys have any questions, along, I was kind of all over the place. I apologize, but I was trying to give you enough reference, enough nuance about this on how to do it, what to do. I'll post the chart and we can kind of go through the settings real quick. For the daily ones, and you don't need the delta on here, but I just have it on there for reference. So for NQ, I use 8 on the tick per volume bar. For globex, I use 4. And then I do the same thing for ES. So ES, I believe it's 4, but yeah, 4 for RTH and 2 for globex. And then I have one for CL and UB as well. And I was actually talking to Rick about this on chat today. So, like for instance, this is a great example of one that has not been tested that I just left on my chart. So, I was kind of saying like if we fall much below this area, I was talking about this. I didn't have anything for like a handle and a half. So this was in RTH, and basically what I haven't changed this chart. So this would have been the daily from today. So obviously this was from the 21st into 22nd, and I didn't chart the globex on here, but so this area was untested and just left it on. We tapped it to the tick, basically got back above this daily, came to this daily and pushed to this daily and had I guess you could say we failed here, but your rebound was to this daily. So these are pretty strong, especially when they're untested. Obviously, you can see this move here. I don't think I did CL, but so this would have been this moves RTH going into tomorrow, this daily. And same thing. So like this one, I took off the highs, I kept the lows. So on some sort of move down, this would be my area of interest of targeting for a take profit. So fall below here, target here. Would be an interesting trade. Now I didn't chart this either. So this area is off. So really below this, it's like $3 below. Now you have some nuances that you could trade, like gain loss stuff in here, but I'm just looking at the nuance of the inventory, and typically these are pretty strong. But if you guys have any questions about kind of how I look at this, on how I draw a certain profile, like what type it is, so like this profile is obviously different than this profile is different than that profile, etc. On like how I would draw a certain profile or how I would look at it, how I would take the trade or anything like that, feel free to reach out. And I guess I'm getting kicked off of this, so but feel free to reach out, and hit me up in the Discord. I can kind of work with you. Maybe I can do a live thing, kind of walk through, like a day of charting it or something along those lines. But feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions, because I'm sure if you do, someone else does. But I'll see you guys in chat.